How to pass the real estate exam. If you found this video, I'm assuming that you've already gone through the licensing process and you're getting ready to take and pass your real estate exam. In this video, I'm going to share the tips and the tricks that helped me pass my real estate exam on the first try. And so you might not think of yourself as a great test taker, and that's okay. I'm still going to share the tools to help you pass your exam. So here are some common mistakes that many people think they need to do to pass the real estate exam. The first is that they want to read every single word of every chapter. The second is that they're taking these crazy notes on every single thing that they're reading. And the third is that they're just trying to be the best possible student. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic that you're doing your best to learn everything that you can. But the reality is, much of the content that's provided in the real estate education is not practical for when you become an agent. So here are some tips to be much more efficient with your time when studying to pass the real estate exam. First is focus on chapter summaries. So skim through the information through the chapter. Usually at the end of the chapters, you're going to have a summary of the chapter, and it's going to give you the most important things from that chapter. Additionally, you're going to want to actually spend more time focusing on the actual exam preparation and studying to pass the exam. So if we take a step back, the whole point of going through the chapters and studying is to pass the exam. So it makes the most sense to do the activities that are going to help you pass the exam. So in summary, you're going to want to spend about 5 to 10 hours actually reading through, skimming the content, and reviewing what's important from each chapter. And as you're reading through the chapters, and you're not necessarily reading every single word, and you're going through that chapter summary at the end, you're going to have the opportunity to see what vocabulary and terminology is most relevant and most important for the actual exam. Another thing that I want you to keep in mind is that the exam itself will not test you on very technical things. So it's not going to go very deep on one specific subject within real estate, but it's going to be very important to know a lot of general knowledge about a wide variety of subjects within real estate. So in terms of actual exam preparation, I know many people love to use flashcards to study for exams, to learn vocabulary. They also have flashcards where they'll ask you questions, and on the other side it'll have the answers. That is more of a personal preference. For me personally, I have never been a big flashcard person. I like to just read the summaries, skim through, and I like to personally write down and take notes on what I think are the most important vocab or most important terms to know. Think about it from a test taking perspective. If you don't know what words mean, or if you don't understand the context of how those words are used, it's going to be very difficult for you to understand the question and understand how to pick the correct answer. With many of the questions on the test, if you simply understand what a word means, you're going to be able to eliminate 2 wrong answers, and you're going to basically increase your percentage of getting the right answer just by knowing what words mean. So now that we've covered understanding the vocabulary and the terminology for the exam, the next piece is actually getting a test bank of exam questions. I would say that is the key piece of this video and passing the exam. For me personally, and for many agents that I know that recently just took the test, they said that was the #1 thing that they did that helped them pass. They got the practice test and the question bank, and they just practiced the test over and over and over. So what this did for them was this allowed them to get very, very comfortable with the way they asked the questions, the format of the questions, and how long the test is going to be. So keep in mind, when you take the real estate exam, it's 150 questions and you have 3 hours to complete it. And when you take the exam, it is taken on a computer. So you want to get comfortable with the format, you want to get comfortable with the time, and you want to get comfortable with kind of pacing yourself for a long exam. And not to mention, You do need to get 70% out of the 150 questions to get a passing score. So that means you need to get 105 questions right out of 150 questions. And although I mentioned that you will be taking this test on the computer, you still have to go to an in-person testing center, at least for California. I'm just speaking on the California salesperson's license. However, these study methods are going to be applicable for anyone taking the salesperson's test. So my strategy for preparing for the actual exam was I spent about 3 hours a day for 5 days prior to the actual exam, just taking that test. And you might be wondering, well, why did I pick 3 hours and 4 to 5 days prior? I wanted to make the scenario the most realistic compared to what the actual exam would be like. So the actual exam, I had 3 hours to complete. So that's the time that I would practice in. I also don't recommend you try to cram like an 8-hour study day 2 days before the test. Personally, for me, I've found in my life that if I get a good night's sleep and I actually just prepare for 4 or 5 days before, and I do the same thing for those 4 or 5 days, I've had much better results. On this test, I passed it on the first try. I just did the practice exams for 5 days, basically, leading up to the actual exam itself. And on the practice exams, on the last 2 days, I was scoring in the mid 80s in terms of number of questions correct. On the first day, I think I was scoring, 60 or 70%. 70% is passing, but I figured if I could get into the mid 80s or 80 and above, then I would for sure pass because I'd be really comfortable with the questions. You're going to see actually exactly the same type of questions on the practice exams as the real exam. And like I said before, it's really, really important that you get a good night's sleep, you take care of yourself, and so you're feeling your best when you're actually taking that exam. The really cool part about the exam in California is you know immediately after you're done taking the test if you've passed or not. I hope this video has given you some confidence that you can pass the real estate exam on your first try. After you pass your exam, if you're looking for more information on how to find the right brokerage, I made another video. Additionally, you can just email me directly. Here's my email.